Welcome to my review for Monster Hunter, a film which has had a bit of a torrid time of it over the past 6 to 9 months, trying to make any money anywhere because of COVID. It did get some kind of UK release last week, which enabled me to go and see it. I saw it on Friday with my wife as part of our 11th wedding anniversary night out. It was my wife's suggestion to see Monster Hunter, even though she doesn't like any kind of horror film. I think she was just trying to please me, bless her, but I wish I'd jumped in first and suggested some kind of naff romantic comedy film just to score some husband points, because in all honesty, I didn't enjoy Monster Hunter. I thought that I might because Paul Anderson is the director. He did a lot of the Resident Evil films, a series which I like. Milla Jovavich from the Resident Evil franchise, she's the lead in Monster Hunter. So with those connections, I thought, okay, well, maybe this will be like a Resident Evil film just with bigger monsters, but actually no, it's a completely different type of plot. The Resident Evil films actually have quite convoluted plots. You've got to pay attention if you're going to watch all 6 films back to back. Monster Hunter is almost totally the opposite. It has the thinnest of thin plots. I mean, it's actually a bit of a stupid storyline. So there are these soldiers driving through a desert at the start of the movie. We don't know what they're doing or what their mission is. It's never explained. And they drive past these like little gravestone marker things. And then a black cloud with lightning comes across, zaps the vehicles that the soldiers are traveling in to another dimension, which looks like the place they were just in, because it's still a desert, except there are now no humans anywhere, and there's just monsters all over the planet, I think. So the soldiers have then got to try and get back to their own world, Dungeons and Dragons style, I guess, and that's the story. It's a little bit stupid. If you told me I had 5 minutes to come up with a movie where humans have to fight huge monsters, I think this plot would be what I would come up with in the first minute, and then I would spend the next 4 minutes after that coming up with stuff which is a lot better. So let's start with the positives that this film has to offer. I'm predicting that this is going to be the shortest segment of the video. And let's begin with Milla Jovovich's performance. I've always been a fan of hers, and she's great in this. She's very watchable. I'm a little bit surprised that she's still taking on roles like this, you know, throwing herself around like a stunt woman. She must be at least 40, you know. I'm pretty sure she's either my age or older. She did Resident Evil, the first one, in 2002, so I'm pretty sure she's older than me. But I just think to myself, why not move into thrillers now, or quieter horror films? Why have you taken on this film which is sort of like Resident Evil but not as good? And I'd say the same about Paul Anderson. I mean, these are very talented people, and why take this on? You know, it's not as if Monster Hunter is exactly one of the most world famous franchises out there. At least I don't think it is. I've never played it, and I play a lot of PS4 games. So that is my first positive, as depressed as I sound about the whole affair, Milla Jovovich's performance. My next positive would be this very good segment where the soldiers get trapped underground in this kind of bugs lair thing, and there's some great body horror. I found this section quite scary. The lighting's great. It's sort of like a combination of Aliens, Pitch Black, and Starship Troopers. And if the whole movie had been the soldiers going up against this particular monster and its brethren, I think it would have been a very good, albeit derivative film. But they leave this bug's nest thing quite early on and get into escapades which are just not as exciting, sadly. My final positive, so I've got 3. Would be the music. There's this great techno track which opens things up, and then it repeats itself at intervals throughout. It's a very catchy tune. I wish it had been in a different movie entirely. It's not unlike something which would have been in one of the Resident Evil films. I've got Resident Evil on the brain today. So let's talk about the bad stuff. I already touched upon the poor setup and story. There are also these characters who are dressed like extras from a Mad Max film, and it's implied that they've been living in the monster world for a long time. Our introduction to them is seeing them plow a pirate ship through loads of sand dunes, which didn't make any sense to me. There's a scene at the end of the Goonies where this investigator slash reporter looks out across the bay and says something like, "We're here at Covey Point with what appears to be a pirate ship." I almost had the exact same reaction in the cinema. I felt like turning around to my wife and saying, "We're here in a desert with what appears to be a pirate ship." I mean, is it a magic ship? Nothing's really explained. There is a very amusing half human, half cat character who we both had a good laugh at. I should have included this guy in my positive section, actually. The only other notable person among the Mad Max extras, I'm just going to permanently call them that from now on, is Ron Perlman's character. I don't know why he agreed to be in this because he's a great actor, but he gets nothing to do here. He's only in about 3 scenes. Maybe he was hoping that this would go on to become a long-running franchise for him. I don't know. He is in the finale, and I'm going to talk about that finale, actually, because it's a complete mess. There are so many points towards the end of this where the film could have ended, and yet it carries on for one more little bit of fight scene. And in the end, it gets itself all in a muddle because when it does end, it's in a really awkward spot because they still have to take down this lightning rod tower. And it's sort of implied that they're going to do it 5 minutes after the film's done, but why not show it in the movie and just cut out some of the fighting leading up to it? It's really weird. They also do this tedious jump into the air thing, which reminded me of Avengers Age of Ultron. You know, when there's like a side-on shot of the heroes in the air with their weapons, and it works better in a Marvel film than it does in a movie like this. I found it really cheesy to look at. I also want to talk about the fact that the soldiers in this film, they fire off so many bullets, and they've got grenades and rocket launchers and things, but all their weapons do nothing against the really big creatures because they've got these hard shells. Even rocket launchers just bounce off them. So it's tedious watching the action in the film because the good guys can't do anything. And all the way through, they're firing guns, firing weapons. Nothing happens. If you compare this to the original Tremors film, for example, which had a similar type of creature that could go under the ground and then it would come up and get you, just like in Monster Hunter. There are 2 characters in that, Bert and his wife, and they've got this rec room full of guns, and they're just firing these guns into the creature, but every bullet's making an impact. You know, one bullet on its own is doing nothing, but every time they get to a new gun on the wall, you can see slowly that the creature's starting to weaken. So, you know, every shot counts. In Monster Hunter, it doesn't. It's just a film full of pointless shots that do nothing because they're just bouncing off the creature. It's so frustrating to watch. The monsters aren't particularly impressive, apart from those bug ones I was talking about earlier. The bigger monsters, the big boss battle ones, if you like, they're really dull. We spend most of the movie taking out this one big thing, but then it turns out there's like a secondary big boss waiting in the wings for the finale. But even though this one's got wings and can blow fire, it somehow feels exactly like the one from earlier. The characters realise that because the bullets don't work, they can take out these things, these massive, big, thick swords that are like that thick. They remind me of something that Cloud would carry in Final Fantasy VII. Maybe if you're playing the game, these swords feel fun to use, but when you're watching actors using them in a movie against a blue screen, it just looks shit, to be honest. I also want to quickly talk about the relationship between the main 2 characters, so Milla Jovovich's Ranger and the native she sort of makes friends with. It's not the most fun friendship I've ever seen in a film. They can't speak in the same language, so they're constantly having to gesture to each other. It's not particularly fun. And when they first meet, they have this fight, and I'm just thinking to myself, why would you do that when you're the only 2 humans seemingly in a world full of monsters? You just wouldn't fight. 5 minutes after they've had their fight, they have another fight. It absolutely beggars belief. Right, I've got to get to the Bag of Terror now and give my score because I don't want to talk about this film anymore. I do not care about a sequel. It's slightly sad that I had to watch this on a wedding anniversary night, to be honest, but it's done now, and so is my review. So let's get to the Bag of Terror. Not much in here. We have 1.5 bloody axes out of 5. That's a poor score, and it might have even got less but for that pretty decent 10-15 minute section underground in the bugs lair type place. Paul Anderson and Milla Jovavich, if you're watching, please do a different type of movie now. The Resident Evil films were great, but this just feels like a really unnecessary tack on to that era. I'll be back next time with another video. Cheerio for now.